New Super Mario Bros. Second World is hot with new ideas and enemies that it can freely explore thanks to the solid foundation that the first world kindly built up. 2-1 is a fantastic opener to this desert landscape because you encounter the same enemy but in 10 different variations, your foe being the Pokey, an irritating but bewitchingly tall beauty that you've gotta jump over. Well, I mean, you could just fireball it to death, but to preserve the integrity of the level design, let's assume you're jumping over them, okay? The first one's meant for you to realize just how tall these guys are. It's at a lower elevation and you still need to hop on top of some blocks to clear it. The second one doesn't grant you any blocks high enough, which is where this block can be found. If you hit the block, then it'll increase in height. Oh, so if you keep hitting it, then you can go high enough to jump over the Pokey. That's cool. The third one isn't cleared by jumping from blocks, but from the high up terrain. This is also where you see how Pokeys interact with upward and downward slopes, where they somehow manage to keep their back straight, unlike your posture right now. The fourth one has a platform meant for you to move up and leap over. I emphasize the you part there since the 5th and 6th Pokeys have platforms of their own, almost like they're saying, alright buddy, now it's our turn to be schmoovin', and schmoovin' they are. This part can be a teensy bit tricky, but since you already experienced these platforms movements just a moment ago, this section feels like a natural step up, as does the following one too. Not only is there a Pokey floating up and down, but this is your first case of quicksand. You'll notice that its textures are constantly moving down like a waterfall, alluding to how it'll suck you in for a most definite overing of your game. Under normal circumstances, a mechanic like this one would be introduced alone without any other obstacles so that you can get a feel for it first, but here your first experience with it is alongside an enemy that you only met a little bit ago. I assume the devs' intentions here were for you to fall into this first quicksand pit that doesn't contain any other dangers. I'm convinced this is the case because of this hanging piece of terrain that perfectly lines up with the platform below, meaning that if you jump against this wall, you'll fall to a sandy fate. Oh, and did I mention how long it takes for you to actually die to this stuff? It leaves you more than enough time to freak out about your restricted movement so that you can get out of there. You did get out of the quicksand in this game when you first dipped into it, right? Now I'm just imagining a little kid thinking this quicksand was safe and accidentally suffocating Mario. You monster, whoever you are. After obtaining the star coin, you'll see another platform set up, but this time, you and your spiked fellow are on alternating platforms, forcing you to time your jump when they're at their most separate. Where do we go from here, you ask? Horizontally, baby! When the platform below goes under the Pokey, it'll actually carry it around and drop it onto the next piece of land. This is a unique interaction between the level and enemies that was vital for you to know, otherwise you'd feel completely dumbfounded if you died to something like this out of nowhere. And even if we remove all the game design lingo from the mix, this is just a really funny mechanic to begin with. This Pokey is groovin', and so are his pals up ahead. They're both one segment taller and are guarding a precious star coin to test your grit against the quirky mechanic you just learned. But if you manage to overcome it with your brain intact, you may be able to notice this tiny warp pipe that can only be accessed if you're mini. There's no mini mushroom in this entire level, so you've got to bring one yourself if you're eager to fit in. But even if you do, it's revealed that there isn't anything too big in terms of a reward. No star coin, nothing. Well, that's a ripoff, you might be thinking, but hold on. No matter how you traverse this level, you will have seen every one of the 3 star coin locations. So of course there wouldn't be a star coin in here. Now, if you were thinking this place would lead to some kind of secret exit, then I could see where you're coming from. Your final challenge consists of infinite platforms moving up and down that you need to cross in order to face the tallest of boys up ahead. However you pass this villain, one thing is certain. You've been taught the many ways you'll encounter its kind in the future, and you're most definitely prepared for each of them. 2-2 gives off the impression that it's an oasis, but there's no water here, thankfully. The real kicker is your good friend Lakitu. Stomping in these guys will leave the cloud unattended for you to hitch a ride on and explore the skies. You've experienced wonders like this back when you glided down in World 1, but here you're flying about and following coin trails to your destination of a star coin. You'll notice that there were actually 2 coin trails leading to this collectible, one for if you rode the cloud early on in the level, and one for if you rode the cloud while right below it. Either way, there was something to point you in the right direction. Aside from riding on this cloud, the Lakitu also throws down spinies that you can guard yourself against using any terrain above you, such as the platforms these Koopa Troopas are on. Looks like they're set up in such a way that you can easily sacrifice them to the block below and the pit thereafter. How satanic of you. The next section isn't as friendly with defensive terrain and just lets the Lakitu have a field day with you, but it becomes apparent that you can outrun the spinies it throws down if you know how to quickly navigate the level. This block layout has a 10 coin block you can cash in on if you use yet another coupon to platform as a part of your ritual. Throwing these guys for coins isn't even the main gimmick of this level, but you can already see how the concept was built up in a rather quick way. Their platforms provide a respite from the Lakitu's fury. That is, until you decide to get this star coin, where you've got to be careful about how you resurface to the surface. If you took the cloud and just flew above this star coin, then you would have skipped over it, eventually realizing that although these clouds are a great shortcut past portions of the level, they'll cause you to miss out on collectibles, leaving you with the decision to beat this level quickly or be a completionist. This block layout's interesting in that you can obtain full protection from the spinies by taking a risk and leaping over the pit, or brave the spinies head on by not jumping the pit. It's a tiny split path that challenges what you'd rather encounter before you even realize you made the decision. This warp pipe shoots you way up, along with a coin trail that'll catch your attention if you happen to be floating by on a cloud. The sub-area you enter looks remarkably similar to this minigame from Mario Party 6.
What are you doing here?
This is spoilers! Get out! Okay, I'm sorry! Here you can blast up to collect a star coin and get out of this place. This whole final section is a straightforward shot to the goal, but I love how the coin trail here was designed. It does this curve, and when you follow this curve on your cloud, you'll end up on top of the flagpole, almost like you did this super long jump to get it. 2-3 introduces you to something you may have not expected, an underground pipe level. I assume this is meant to represent some kind of irrigation system for this world, as means to counteract how dry it is. Regardless, it looks pretty cool. Its clever design will offset any concerns over how claustrophobic it is, cause man do you feel cramped in here. The first star coin can be obtained by simply taking this upper route. Frankly, it's pretty much handed to you, with its only purpose being that you should explore these sewers as much as you can. This wall is called a flipper and will only flip to let you by if you kindly follow its arrow indicator. Since there is no other route available, you will run into this flipper before any of the others, thus showing you exactly how it works. You even get to see how a flipper functions when it's on the ground, rewarding you with multiple coins and a way back up. These manholes can all be ground pounded in a row, leading you to the next section where you're challenged to properly navigate this flipper maze in order to obtain this second star coin. Just a cute little test is all, with a piranha plant as punishment should you mess up, as one might expect. One slide down and a peek to the left will have you gathering a coin and a 1-up should you poke around a bit more. What's more interesting though is this next section with this P-switch. If you hit it, then the water will raise, allowing you safe passage onwards. But if you take the water up through this hole and hit the second P-switch, then the water will continue to rise so that you can enter this other tunnel, which in turn leads you to a wonderfully placed secret exit that unlocks the way to 2A. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The main route has a big boy chomper easily crossed, along with a little maze that contains a couple routes that don't really take you anywhere. Should you best it by collecting the final star coin and properly outsmarting the final flipper puzzle, you'll make your way out of the only sewer level in the game and continue on to 2-4. But before we explore that splendid place, let's back up to 2A, where the secret exit led us. This place is something of an oasis of this desert world. I think it's pretty cool how this water-themed level is connected to the sewers, further supporting the idea that those sewers are what's providing the water to the world. This, by the way, is an example of a water level I like. Water in this game makes you slow and vulnerable, making you feel like you're being punished, and yet some levels in this game are entirely underwater, which doesn't really make sense to me. Whereas in a level like this one, only the floor of the level is underwater, meaning if you mess up, then you're punished with being slow and vulnerable. Oh, and of course there's the spike passes. These guys are scary and love to follow you around and leap at you when you're least expecting it. This necessitates you to navigate the wide open level while keeping an eye on your aquatic, not so ally lingering below. The first stretch of platforms here aren't too big of a deal so that you learn how to avoid the fish, even going as far as to challenge you with the star coin that's much closer to it. This section without platforms is much scarier since if you miss the launch pads, that'll leave you wide open to getting gobbled up. When flying up into the sky, there's a helpful trail of coins that lead you to the next launch pad, which in turn leads you to glide around some more. If you happen to land on this block and jump, then you'll discover a hidden block, followed by a 1-up hidden block should you jump again. Considering these hidden blocks are offset to the left by 1 placement on the grid, I really wonder how many players actually found these guys. The launch pads up ahead contain outlined coins, teasing you to drill back down for them once activated. An even bigger tease is the second star coin, which is put in the most dangerous position yet, floating above with no platforms to protect you from the spike bass. What's even trickier than obtaining this guy is getting to the yellow warp pipe. You might think that it requires a simple jump or a jump off the Koopa Troopa, but that doesn't give you the height you need. And I mean, sure, you can do it with the mini mushroom, but we're talking level mechanics here, okay? What you've got to do is use the previous launch pad and then glide down to the Koopa and bounce off of it for great height to reach the yellow pipe, which in turn grants you the last star coin and a trip to the secret exit. This one leads you to the World 2 cannon that blasts you to World 5, which might feel like overkill, but remember, you had to find 2 secret exits to access this cannon, so I'd say that's a fair reward. If you didn't reach that secret exit, and honestly I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, then you'd probably be launching off this pad here for a lovely performance ending with a flagpole finish. 2-4 continues this world streak of brilliantly teaching new mechanics in a clean manner. The P-switches affect the terrain itself, with this first one being an example of raising sand up to form a hill, gladly granting you access to the blocks that were originally too high for you to hit. We've got some enemies to avoid up ahead, but the first star coin is where we're introduced to the terrors of mean piranha plant placements. Yeah, this level's gonna really stick it to you with these guys, and it becomes evident when you start scaling down the mountain, where multiple piranha plants pop up with their pearly whites, just itching for a bite. Don't let this distract you from the mini mushroom warp pipe over at the left here. Unfortunately, this level doesn't grant you a mini mushroom to enter it, which I'm not really a fan of, but hey, I guess you can't win them all. If you navigate to this part of the level while already mini and run into this pipe, then you'll discover a secret exit that doesn't let you skip worlds, but just a couple levels. In the very likely event you didn't have a mini mushroom during this section, you'd probably be hitting this blue P-switch, which spawns these silvery blue coins for you to collect. But don't let these shiny collectibles distract you from yet another secret in the water, one that's a bit more scary to traverse because you've got to lower yourself right next to the death pit below, repeatedly bonking your head against the ceiling. But once you suffer multiple concussions, then you'll enter an underwater section, overworld section, which, what do you know, contains the second star coin. Hitting the P-switch lets you climb back up to the main path, which we need to backtrack a little to see what we miss, which doesn't look like much, but if you wall jump up here, you reach a dead end. Anyways, check out this path. Upon running it in a straightforward manner, you'll find yourself without enough height to clear the ledge, forcing you to discover this P-switch in the block that creates some hills. Unfortunately, this raises the piranha plants as well, making them a bit more difficult to avoid, showing the pros and cons of messing with the terrain. These hammer bros have nothing to do with the level's gimmick and were just placed here to be jerks. Kill them, take the star coin, and go clear the level in style. 2 Tower is all about rotating, so get used to it. These first couple rotary platforms hover over some death pits, showing you that despite only just being introduced to this gimmick, that these tower levels are no joke. You have the option of jumping from platform to platform as it rotates in order to speed through the level quicker, or be patient as the platforms take you for a spin. Either way, you'll come across this rope that you can climb across as the dry bones below glares at you. It's at this point you have the option of climbing to the left or climbing to the right. This left path presents you with one of my favorite challenges, the Wall Jumper 4000. In order to continue scaling the tower, you've got to keep wall jumping as this machine cranks along its path. But wait, you've got to make sure you drop out of it and hop on top so that you can leap through the hole with the star coin. Not doing this will result in being brought down to the beginning where you've got to shamefully ride the express once more. Exiting this section will bring you right next to the pipe that leads to the boss, which is fine and all, but what about the other star coin? Well, that was in the earlier room on the main path. You have to climb along the ropes and drop down to the bottom right corner in order to obtain it, which is also fine and all, but what if you wanted to collect all 3 star coins in one run? You'd have to grab this guy and backtrack a bit of the level in order to access where the other star coin is. I don't really like how these star coins were arranged and prefer when backtracking is minimized unless it's adding a lot to the gameplay, which I can't really say is the case here. Regardless, check out these red coins. They have you jumping around the rotating platforms for a reward, although something tells me they're meant to distract you from inspecting the bottom right corner for the star coin. Slide devils. The last section of the level contains not rotating platforms, but rotating squares. See, it's different. I know I sound sarcastic, but it actually is. The first two are a simple matter, but the next one looks to be impossible until you hit the block that spawns a couple more. This hints at what you need to do in order to obtain the third star coin that's way too high for you to reach. It's but a simple matter of hitting the red block and climbing the newly appeared blocks. The Bowser Jr. fight plays out the exact same way as it does in one tower, except this time there's a sand pit you can fall into, and if you let yourself be consumed by it, then you'll meet a fate of the game overing kind. Other than that, his fight pattern's the same. 2-5 begins with a simple opening of a few blocks on the ground and no other obstacles. That is, until you reach a certain tower of blocks that is sentient. Yes, this level has sentient blocks that can walk around and jump. You can destroy these guys with the ground pound wall big, but that's neglecting how useful they can be. See this star coin that's too high for you to reach? If you climb onto one of these block hoppers, as they're called, and face a direction, then they'll move that way. Even better is that they'll jump whenever the song in the background does a ba, and if you haven't noticed already, a ton of other enemies respond to these ba's as well. Goombas will hop to it, Koopas will dance to it, and many others have their own cute little acknowledgement of the song that's playing in the background. This is an adorable mechanic that I love. It's just too wholesome. After the first star coin, there's an awkward, jagged path that you've got to take, but if you jump onto a block hopper and face right, then you don't have to worry about navigating this terrain. You can tell it's what the devs wanted you to do since there are coins a little higher than your regular jump. The next section contains multiple platforms that can be jumped through, followed by your first look at a fire snake. They, like you, are able to hop onto the platforms, making your job a bit tougher in avoiding them, especially because they can't be jumped on nor burned with fire. The second star coin is much higher up than the first, meaning you've got to trust in the block hopper's jumping skills and take a jump yourself when you're at the apex of its jump. Alternatively, you could also hit this P-switch here and take this newly formed path of blocks to the star coin. No block hopper required. Ahead you'll find a boomerang bro who's adept at covering a wide horizontal range, which is arguably more annoying than the hammer bro, especially in a situation like this where you've got to leap past a couple pitfalls into sand in order to enter the pipe. But if you have a sharp eye, then you might have noticed this little underpath here, that when taken will lead you to a pseudo underground area, where you must yet again use a block hopper's AI to your advantage. Just don't accidentally have him fall into this pit, and you should be good to go. Now, I don't like auto-scrollers, but 2/6's auto-scrolling is actually pretty good, and I think it has to do with how the level's mechanics work with the auto-scrolling instead of against it, as in I couldn't imagine how this level would work if it didn't auto-scroll. You start on a long platform as it takes you towards your destiny. Piranha plants can be found on their own smaller platforms floating by, just out of reach so that they don't harm you. A clear way of communicating what you're about to get into without throwing you to the sharks, or the piranhas in this case. The next two Piranha Plants platforms actually make contact with yours, and you might be surprised to find that this contact causes them to be placed right beside you. If you have a fire flower, then disposing of them is no big deal. If not, then you've got to handle their presence as you continue to dodge any other Piranha Plants that come flying by. But don't fret, there's a platform up ahead that's specifically designed to get rid of the right Piranha Plant should it still be there. A heartwarming gesture by the devs for those players that didn't have a fire flower. What I find especially amusing about this is how another plant's placed there not even a moment later. Let's not forget the first star coin that's a little higher up, not much of an obstacle if you keep your wits about you. Right after enduring the next Piranha Plant, you'll see another long platform above you, which when stood on will activate it so that it floats alongside the OG. You can tell things are about to ramp up in difficulty a little bit, as shown by the previous Piranha Plants getting taken away, almost like a respite before encountering what's next, that being multiple Piranha Plants coming at you from differing angles. There's no telling exactly where they'll be placed, since the second platform you activated earlier may be a bit behind the first, a bit ahead, or anywhere in between. Regardless of its position, it's likely that the two plants will get split up, making it awkward for you to navigate your newly found space. And if you didn't activate the second platform at all, well, let's just say you would not be having a good time with the angles these guys come from. Up ahead, you'll see a big boy chomper that's a lot easier to avoid if you activated the second platform, which also makes it easier to reach the second star coin. Your final challenge of the level is to clear the rest of it without the platforms you've grown used to. You must now hop atop vertical moving platforms while you're getting shot at with fireballs. Should you brave this danger and overcome it, you can claim the third star coin and meet this piranha plant, which seems to have somehow managed to slip itself through a cork that's stuck in a warp pipe. That's gotta be an amazing feat in the plant world. Unfortunately, it was done in the warp pipe we need to enter to clear the level, so just ground pound the pump and get the pain over with so that we can move on to 2 Castle, the final level of the world. I'm quite fond of it. It does an exemplary job at exploring its mechanic in varying ways, that mechanic being the rolling spike balls, the first of which you can clearly see above your very head, rolling down the blocks and eventually into the pit. The devs could have placed the first spike ball you see in a completely safe area below you, but they instead decided to demonstrate how dangerous one is by placing it above your head right as you spawn in. If that's not a good way of establishing the threat of the level, I don't know what is. The next couple spike balls deal with differing elevations with a wide open area to jump over them. The next is caught in a pit where it's baiting you into hitting the blocks above, all for a couple of coins. Not worth. Another huge spike ball can be found ahead, which you can easily clear by leaping off the rope at the end of the jump. Doing so with great height will land you on top of the 2 platforms for a ton of coins and a 1-up. The next section is way tighter, giving you no room to jump over the spike balls like you've been doing this entire time. But then you've got to think, if you can't jump over them, then what about going under them? There's a couple holes in the floor that you can drop into, and if you stand there while small or crouch while big, then the spike balls will simply roll over you without dealing any damage. Good to know. The first star coin is in a pocket above, where you've got to carefully avoid a spiky fate to claim it. Once you enter the door, you'll actually find yourself outside of the castle, facing multiple bill blasters that want you dead. The second star coin is out of your reach, but can be claimed by jumping off a bullet bill to your left. You'll spot a P-switch that when activated causes the terrain below you to lower, which in turn causes a spike ball to start rolling back and forth in the pit you just made. This is a nice callback to the mechanic from 2.4, which prepared you for this more difficult version of it. The rope up ahead does the same job as the one before in helping you clear the huge spike ball, but this time actually reaching it can be a pain. If you continue on the main path, then you'll notice a lot of mini mushroom blocks around. If you were really sharp, then you would have noticed that there was a mini mushroom block ceiling above the P-switch, which doesn't lead anywhere, making me think it was meant to be some kind of foreshadowing. Is this level's third star coin so cruel that you've got to do the entire level over while mini just to reach it though? Thankfully, no. The right block up here contains a mini mushroom that you can use to enter this cubbyhole to avoid a spike ball and claim the third and final star coin. The last P-switch opens up the path to the door, while also letting the spike ball roll about. After carefully entering the boss room, you'll encounter the Mummipoke. This guy's gotta be hit 3 times, but it's not as easy as you think. He'll spit out projectiles and bury underground to hide himself, popping out moments later to try and attack you. The length of time he stays out is dependent upon how many segments of his are visible, which makes sense because the shorter he is, the quicker you can jump on his head. After the 3 hits are dealt, you'll blow up and you'll grab the key for a from Mario. The next room, as you may have expected, has Bowser Jr. who runs away with Peach once more. But what you may have not expected to see was this small tunnel below the sign to World 3. Upon closer inspection, it's the perfect size for you to squeeze through while mini. Testing this path out can be difficult though. You've got to grab the mini mushroom from earlier in the level and fight the boss while mini. Consider for a moment that a single hit from the boss will end you, and that simply jumping on his head is not enough to damage him. You have to ground pound, which makes things a lot more dicey considering it's more of a commitment. If you somehow manage to best this hard mode version of the boss, then you can grab the key in all of its glory. When the next scene plays, Mario will run forward like normal, but this time he'll drop into the tunnel below and flip the sign, which now says World 4. That's right, which world you unlock is dependent upon how you clear this castle. World 3 for if you do it the normal normal way, and World 4 for if you do it while mini. The map even indicates this by using these dotted lines, which references the mini mushroom blocks that we've seen time and time again. Thus wrapping up World 2, which was full of levels that introduced and taught fun mechanics unique to them in ways that were chock full of creativity. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time when we visit World 3.